The Aging Queen. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Aging Queen. I have our regular guest, Dr. Kristen, on today. How are ya?
Hi, I'm good.
How you been keeping?
Very well, very well. Everything is going well with me. I just got back from a little vacation, and now I'm um, gearing up for some like
Where'd you
increased.
go?
I went to Cambodia and Laos.
Oh man, you're making me so jealous.
Yeah, and it was really nice. It was really fun. I The last day that we were there, we wanted to go to a casino that was like
Mm-hmm.
on the border of Laos and Thailand, and it was called Vegas,
No
actually.
way.
And we
Really?
got there, and we didn't have any money. Like we thought that we assumed that we could like that there would be an ATM there to like take money out, because it's a
Uh-huh.
casino. Like there's ATMs everywhere in casinos in the
Right.
United States to like, fuel the losses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the ATM there is closed on Saturdays, like as if an
Oh, that's
ATM could be
defeats
closed.
the
So it was closed on
purpose of
Saturday.
an ATM.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like not. It isn't like anyone has to work there. Like why does it have to be closed on Saturday?
That's like an
Um,
ER that opens 9 to 5.
right, right. It's so stupid. So
Yeah.
we didn't have any money. So we were like, this sucks. So we basically pooled the change that we had on us, which, was like, I didn't eat, like, my friend barely made one minimum bet on the table, and I didn't make the minimum bet.
My.
So we had like $3 between the two of us, but we chose the easiest table game we could find, which is called Tiger Dragon, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
have it in the United States. But literally, they flip two cards over, and like one is on the tiger side of the table and one is on the dragon side of the table, and you
Mm-hmm.
just guess beforehand which is going to be higher. That's the whole game.
That's it? I mean,
That's
that's
the whole
that's a
game.
50-50 chance,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Or is it going to be a tie? Like those are the only three options. And so we were like, all right, well, we're just gonna so we like sat down at the table, and then we just copied the Chinese man next to us.
Oh,
Like
that's good.
whatever bid he placed,
I'm
we
sure
placed
that
the
guy's
same
been
thing.
there for like 30 years without
Yeah,
leaving his seat.
yeah, he knew enough to bring money. So yeah, so it was amazing. So we parlayed our $3. We had like a wild streak of winning.
Wow.
Yeah, we like it hit Tiger like 13 times in a row,
Oh
which is like
man.
statistically like astronomically rare. But we just copied the Chinese guy to our left.
That's
And
amazing.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. And we like parlayed our $3
Mm-hmm.
into $65. We went from 3 to
Oh.
65. And so we had
This is
enough
so
money.
strange because when we went to Portugal together back in the day, we
It was
remember
the
there was a
complete
casino.
opposite.
You didn't like to gamble at all.
Well, this was an easy game,
Right.
and the minimum bet was like 50,
Pennies. Yeah.
like, yeah, it was like pennies, it was like
Right.
maybe like 75 US cents or something. So or a dollar. So it was very easy to like,
It's not much
to
risk. Yeah.
sample. Yeah, but I remember Portugal, it was the total opposite. We walked in, you had some cash in your pocket, one
I blew
spin of
like
the roulette.
$500
Yeah,
in
five.
10
I
minutes.
remember that your dad gave you. Once you put
Yeah,
it
for the
all in
trip.
one spin of the roulette game, lost it immediately.
I was like, let's put it all on red. And it was gone.
So totally the opposite. Yeah, it's so funny. So we
Yeah.
were able to get a taxi home. Like we would have figured it out. Like we would have stopped at an ATM on the way or something in the taxi, but we were able to
Right.
take a taxi back to our hotel, go to a really nice dinner, have a bunch of cocktails, and then take another taxi to the airport and even buy two magnets as souvenirs in the airport while we were
Oh.
leaving, all with our
Huh.
$65. It goes a long way in
Yeah, I
miles,
bet.
let me
Yeah.
tell you.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
That reminds
Anyway,
me of when we all went to the Bahamas and
yes.
yeah, Christina and I had stopped into Nassau. What was it? What's that big hotel casino? Oh, I forget.
Oh, I
It's the
forget. Like
It's the
Yeah,
big
I know what
one.
you're talking about, the big one with
Yeah.
the casino.
And we won. We won some money. We won like $700, and that paid for our trip,
Oh,
basically.
Atlantis.
Atlantis, that's right.
That's amazing. You won $700?
Yeah. It was actually we won more, and I had to go to the bathroom. It was
Oh no.
blackjack. I
Oh no.
told Christina, I said, "Don't make any bets till I come back." She's like,
Oh
"Okay."
no.
And we were up like $300, and I came back, and she had bet all the money in. It was gone, so we had to work our way back up.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah,
All because you had
because it
to
was a thing we
be.
were both doing together, but it was funny because I was like, "What happened?"
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, that's and I can totally see her like just trying to justify it, in her
yeah,
way.
yeah, I know. She's like, "Well, I got bored."
Yeah.
But it was fine. We made enough money
That's
for the trip.
so
It paid the
funny.
flights and the ferry and the hotel room that we stayed in,
Wow,
and
that's
yeah,
so great. See,
yeah,
gambling can,
pays off.
yeah, it can pay off.
It literally just pays off for little things, but then when you try to make real money from it, forget it. It's like,
Yeah, when you try and like pay your rent with it for like,
yeah, no,
put
it's
down a down payment on a house, it never goes your way.
no, it never does.
It can smell that desperation.
I know. Speaking of desperation, it's our topic of
Oh,
today.
yeah, that's true.
um, Chemistry on chemistry. So today's topic is about love and when you know you've met the right person, or when you think you've met the right person, it's a false alarm, or when you're just horny. You know, our body's made up of chemicals and it gives these reactions. One can say that they're called butterflies or a little bit of anxiety, stage fright, even. So I wanted to bring you on to see if you can give us a little bit of the medical explanation on why we feel the way we feel when we like someone.
Yeah, so this is not my specialty, so I just did a little bit of
So you're
research.
not an MD in butterflies?
I'm not an MD in love, no, or
Oh.
butterflies. Um, but I did like a little bit of research. So I
Hmm.
found some information that I'm happy to share. As I was researching this, it actually was super interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so there are kind of three recognized stages of love in the brain. The first one is attraction. So
Hmm.
like first impressions, and because they first impressions are a real thing, like they really do matter.
Wow.
When you see somebody that you like, or something that excites you, then your body releases adrenaline.
Mm.
It's also called norepinephrine, but it's like adrenaline, and that's the first rush, and that's the reason that your cheeks feel flushed, that
Hmm.
your palms get sweaty, and that your heart races when you meet
Hmm.
someone that you like for the first time. And so the degree that you like them indicates, like, kind of correlates with how much adrenaline your body releases and how
Hmm.
nervous you feel around them. Um, the next chemical that's released is dopamine, which we all kind
Mm.
of know is like the feel good chemical. Like, um,
You're
it's
you're
and
on, you're on a mountain. You're higher than life.
yeah, yeah. Like also like people when they do drugs, like they get that
Right.
dopaminic high. Um, and so dopamine is released also during the initial stages of attraction, and it creates feelings of euphoria and excitement and motivation to continue to pursue that person.
Mm.
So it kind of creates this momentum going forward to want to keep on spending time with them. um, Attraction hits in the same part of your brain as drugs and alcohol do, which can
Wow.
make falling in love feel like an addictive rush. Yeah.
So why? So we are built like this in order to keep us together, right?
um
If not, we would just be bouncing off each other, or what? What's the purpose of? I guess there's a reproductive purpose here, and also maybe bonding and building
mhm,
a
yeah.
family of whatever kind of family it is. Um, right?
Yeah, no, there's definitely like a
A
reproductive
purpose. Or,
emphasis. There's definitely like a purpose to it. The initial phase of attraction is Also for sex. Just
Hmm.
forget the next couple of phases. The attraction phase comes first. The
So is
second
this,
phase,
can we say it's lust, or is this?
well, the second phase is lust,
Oh,
I
okay.
think. Yeah, this phase two is lust. So yeah, you're
Hmm.
exactly right. And lust is driven by the levels of testosterone in men and estrogen in women in our bodies. So
Wow.
younger people have higher levels of these of testosterone and estrogen, and so lust is stronger. It's more strongly felt when you're young, and those both of those hormones decrease as you get older.
Hmm.
So that's why, like a man in his 70s is not as lustful as a man in his 20s.
Right.
Is the level of testosterone is less. And this is the same as in other mammals on the planet. Their desire to have sexual intercourse is controlled by their testosterone and estrogen levels, which decrease with time.
Because there's a
So,
cycle. The cycle of life happens when you're younger, and you procreate. And even for gay relationships, you still mimic that. You still have that urge.
right.
It's the same thing as the urge that we have for to hunt and gather. It does. We hunt and gather now at freaking supermarket. But we're still gathering. We're still hunting. You're
Right.
hunting for deals. That's why people love shopping, because it
Yeah, I
mimics
mean,
that
you're hunting for a
effect.
partner. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So
Um,
number two is lust.
yes. And then number three, the last sort of stage of love in the brain is attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So this is driven mainly by a hormone called oxytocin. Um, it's known as the quote cuddle hormone.
Right.
Oxytocin is released during physical intimacy. So, and promotes feelings of trust, bonding, and attachment.
Hmm.
So like when you hold hands with someone, when you cuddle with them, when you're intimate, physically intimate, so sex or just cuddling, that releases a rush of oxytocin in both the man and the woman, both partners, both people.
Now, what
Um,
if you have this all within one night? What if you have I mean, is this linear? Is this throughout like a few weeks or what? Because if you have that initial attraction, and then you have the lust where you're kind of touching each other and making out, and then you go home and you cuddle, right? And you have the
mhm.
attachment. Can that happen, or is that all just a part of the attraction still?
No, I think that I think it is linear, like, and
Hmm.
just think like when you meet someone, it kind of does go in that order. Like your first attract, like you first see someone
Right.
that you like,
Catches your eye. Yeah.
someone catches your eye, you get like a good first impression of somebody, and then, next you begin to lust for, like you begin to feel sexually attracted to them. You begin to lust for them. You have sex. Afterwards is when you cuddle. And that's
Right.
when you talk, and like appetites are a little bit sated, and so you have good conversation, you're cuddling, you're holding each other, you're forming a bond, and that's when the oxytocin is like flowing.
Right.
So it is kind
Right.
of linear. It can happen in the span of 20 minutes if
Right.
move
You work
quick,
fast.
or it can happen in the span of 2 years if you move
Yeah.
slowly.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I personally I'm a smell guy, and it's not about
Hmm.
cologne or anything. It's I've said this in other episodes. It's like there's these pheromones, this body odor, um, that it just it's attractive or not to you. You
Hmm.
either some smells. I've had even taxi drivers where their body odor it repels me, or I've had taxi drivers that their body odor, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not so bad. Does it mean that I want to make out with the taxi driver? No, but the smell is not compatible with me, in general. And then when you
Yeah.
add that piece of attraction, that smell is an additional piece of attraction there for me.
Exactly, exactly. Like, how people say I have a type, a quote unquote
Right.
type. Well, there's
Hmm.
actually a little bit of science behind that type, because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
drawn to the same person, the same thing over and over again. And one of the scientific components of type is pheromones, that smell.
Hmm.
That
Interesting.
so yeah, so like,
So
pheromones are. chemical smells that linger in our sweat and our other like bodily fluids, our saliva, our sweat. Um, like it can be in like our hair, like the hair, the oil of our hair. It's and um and science suggests that there is a subconscious factor to our initial attraction to someone based on their pheromones, their smell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was actually a study that I found that says if you're female, this can be closely linked to the health of your potential children. In
Right.
one study, female participants were asked to rate the smell of several t-shirts, all slept in by various different men.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, the women preferred the scents of men who had disease-resistant gene profiles that
Okay.
would
That's
complement their own. Yeah, so like this suggests we subconsciously look for a partner who will help us produce strong, healthy babies, resistant to as many diseases as possible. So
okay.
like
So
the
there's
fact
this
that
a whole invisible world that kind of directs us. This
yeah,
whole
that your
chemical world.
nose subconsciously picks up on that your brain has no
It's wild.
idea usually that you're doing. Like it kind of interests me that you say that you can detect, I don't, that you can detect, I don't know if you're actually detecting the pheromones of the taxi drivers, for example, or just their body odor. And I don't really know, like, if those are exactly the same things or if they're different, because pheromones are usually like
Well, well,
a
some
little bit more
people
subtle.
their body odor doesn't bother me, and it's okay, and other people it reeks.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I don't know if that's the pheromone thing or if it's just body odor, but um, it could be
A little bit of both.
contributed to diet or something they've eaten,
Yeah.
But but I can tell that when I like someone, I there's something, it's like dogs walking down the street. Some dogs like immediately like each other for no reason, and they confirm it by smelling each other. Sometimes they look at each other and they're like, rah, 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 or they smell each other and they kind of repel. So there's, the dog um, is really driven more by his nose than his eyes than his eyesight. And I
Yeah.
feel like we as humans we're up in our heads too much, and um, I think we are more chemically driven than we think. I
Yeah.
think
We're
we're
very
more.
chemically driven.
Yeah, and that's what when people follow your heart, they say that's really follow your chemicals, follow your intuition. And sometimes you look at people and you're like, God, they're such a mismatch. Like they don't seem like they should be together, age wise or look wise or whatever. And it's because probably their their smells are compatible, and they had some kind of chemical cosmic um connection, you know
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I found, which I guess is a little bit self-evident, but was still kind of interesting to me, was the other kind of scientific explanation that makes up your quote unquote type
mm-hmm.
is like your physical appearance, like beauty, like what you consider beautiful, because that's what your type is. Like we were just talking before, like I like guys who have beards and tattoos. You like guys who are more preppy. Like
Yeah.
we have a type, what builds that type. And um, I think we all have heard that like symmetrical faces are
Mm-hmm.
considered the hallmark of conventional beauty, just because usually that means implies that you have good genes, that there's like
Right.
nothing genetically wrong with you, at least with your outer appearance. But then they also kind of found, and then this is also sort of like again self-evident, but that the people that we find attractive often are influenced by our life experiences.
Oh,
Such
okay.
like so if we are exposed to like kind men who are bald, like
Mm-hmm.
like whether it be our father, our neighbor, our best friend in college, if we're exposed to kind men who are bald, for example, then when I see a bald man, I will immediately associate him with positive things
Yeah.
and become instantly more attracted to him from the beginning.
Mm.
So it's this, so it's having a series of positive, um, like positive experiences with someone who looks a certain way
Yeah, you
over
attribute
the course of your
them
life.
to another past connection that was nice
Yeah,
to you or
yeah,
positive.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Makes
also,
sense.
yeah, and then research also suggests that familiarity and exposure to
Hmm.
certain faces increase their attractiveness. So basically, you are
Um,
attracted to people who look like yourself, like because you are used to
I can
seeing
see
your
that.
own face.
And this is why
So
people
blonde,
date their twins, basically.
yeah. So like people who are fair skinned and blonde often will date another fair skinned blonde person because
Right.
they're used to seeing their own face in the mirror, and that is familiar and comfortable. And yeah, and so that's sort of one explanation for how appearance can become part of your type.
Hmm. Interesting. And what about okay, let's say you meet someone and there's a strong connection. Is there a strong connection because it's water in the desert that you haven't really met someone that you liked in a very long time and now you finally drank this, if you weren't so thirsty, it wouldn't be so important to you? Or is it because the connection is strong? Um, like, do that first love at first sight kind of thing? Does that exist, or is it just that we're really thirsty?
Nah. um
And it doesn't have to be something medical or chemical. I mean, you could say your
yeah.
opinion too. I mean,
Yeah,
from
I
your
mean,
experience,
I think that love at first sight is a real chemical phenomenon. Like, you get the more attracted you are to somebody, the more of an adrenaline rush you get. And that's kind of like what love at first sight is, that like initial excitement, like you're um being like you're being chased by a bear, like that initial excitement that you feel, like
right?
that fear, that trepidation, that sense of feeling alive,
Hmm.
but then I think like being thirsty in a desert, I think is more lust related.
Right,
So I
right.
think it's more like the testosterone estrogen thing. Um so yeah, I mean, like I I think those two, I mean, it's a hard question to answer. For me personally, attraction comes right away.
Hmm.
Um and then lust follows behind. But for me to like lust for somebody, for me, I have to have a little bit of an emotional or like an intellectual connection to them, which
Right,
takes, at least a few hours to build, not maybe like weeks, but at least a few hours. So that attraction, which can be literally immediate, for me, the lust doesn't usually start until like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later, after I feel like we have a good rapport, and there's like a little bit of like mental stimulation.
right.
So yeah, that's that's how I think I work.
Hmm. Yeah. Have you ever felt butterflies?
I have. Yeah, I
Have
have.
they led you uh, to the wrong down the wrong path or down the right path? Do they signal something is positive or is something negative? Is it a stress response?
No, I think it's an indicator of of how like physically attracted I am to that person. Um,
Okay.
and how just overall attracted I am to them physically, emotionally. I think I've had butterflies like maybe maybe like only two or three people in my
Yeah,
whole
me
life, which
too.
is
I'd
not a
say
lot.
three people. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
out of all the people I've dated.
And you've
And
dated
all
these
of
people you've had butterflies or
uh I mean, dating is like a loose word. I mean, like we would um a few weeks, a few weeks to like a few months.
right.
It wasn't like a one night stand, but it was like a two-night stand for one of them, and then the other was like a couple weeks, and then the other was a couple of months.
So is the
Uh,
feeling just so strong that it burns out faster or I'm just
no,
trying
it
to.
never burned out for me. No, no,
Oh,
no.
really?
It never burned out for me. They either they moved away for their job, or they want, like, one of them wanted to have children and I didn't, and so that kind of like put the kibosh on moving forward. So there were like other reasons outside of compatibility
Mm-hmm.
that ended all three of those relationships.
Right.
Um, and one guy lost interest in me. One guy moved away, and then one guy wanted to have kids, and I don't. So, but I mean, but it was they were I mean, I wish they could continue. They were super exciting, like super exciting. Oh my gosh! I mean, I still to this day remember it, and it was like one of them was like a decade ago. You know,
Yeah. Makes you
more
feel
than that.
alive, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it
So your
does.
relationships, the long-term ones, most of them haven't started out with butterflies.
No, they haven't, but I don't think that's connected. I think that any of those other three that did start out with butterflies, I think those could have been long-term relationships if
Oh yeah.
if the circumstances had worked out, like if one person didn't have to move for their job, if this other
Right.
person didn't want to have kids, I think that we could that I think the butterflies would have sustained me in that relationship longer. I think the butterflies would have helped sustain that relationship more than
Okay.
others.
How did you recover from the butterflies? How did you disconnect?
Um, I used um like pragmatism. I use reason to
Mm,
justify that wasn't going to be a good relationship for me long term, and that my heart was just going to be broken at some point, And so it's better that I got out early on,
mm-hmm.
um, and that I can spend my time looking for somebody who I could be compatible with for the rest of my life. So I use reason. I still miss those feelings. I still miss those people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the practical side of me is also very strong. And so I can
Time helps, right? Time
live.
heals. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, time helps. Um, yeah, yeah.
You're like
I still
it's
am
you
friends
still
with,
feel it. Yeah, it's
yeah, I'm still friends with one of them now. And he's still a friend in my life. Because again, we were super compatible, he wanted to have kids and I don't. So we're still friends. And he tells me all about the new people he's dating. And it always hurts a little bit, but I'm also happy for him. Um, you know, and I'm in a relationship now that I'm happy, pretty happy in. So, it but it still hurts when he tells me I'm still always supportive and he has no idea that I still feel this way for him,
oh.
um but yeah, so I don't think it ever really goes away.
Yeah, I agree. I still remember my, I I I picked this topic because I recently uh felt this way with someone. Um and it doesn't this feeling doesn't come around quite often. The last time to be honest was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So, when you do get this feeling, you kind of the first time it happened to me, so this is the third time probably in 20 years. And the first time it's very alarming, because when they say love hurts, that's kind of how it hurt more than anything.
Yeah.
Um, like your mind obsesses and it just keeps thinking about this person and what are they doing now and where are they now? Oh, they should be leaving the gym, and you become a little obsessive, and it distracts you from your regular life. It distracts you from other things, and then you become almost like subservient to that feeling. So, and if you don't if you get fed that energy from the other person, meaning if that person also reciprocates, or spends time with you and it makes you feel good, then it elevates you even more, and it satisfies you. But if they pull away, that's where the hurt comes,
Mhm.
because the feeling is so strong that it leaves you almost with like a live wire. It's like if you cut if you're an electrician, you always turn the power off before you cut wires. Well, this feels like the electricity's on and it just cut it. It's almost like an
Mhm.
amputation. And that disconnect, is so wild. I think it's one of the strongest feelings a human's ever gonna feel in their human experience. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So I recently felt it, and now that I'm older, I can try to control it a little bit more. And like you said, I rationalize it. I try to be more pragmatic about it. Um, and it's my third time that I've felt this. Um,
Yeah.
so it's not so scary. I know what it means, and I know kind of how to handle it. Now, does it mean that you're gonna win this time? Meaning that you're not gonna get your heart broken? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that you're alive. It's exciting, and you're feeling things, and you should just use that as kind of like a gauge and say, okay, you're something's going on inside. You're if it's not this one, at least you're opening yourself to being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays in our society, we're the most connected, yet the most disconnected. So I think if we let ourselves become vulnerable, um, more and more in dating, that will open us up. It can open you up to being hurt, but it also opens you up to being loved. And a lot of people don't want to be opened up to anything. They want everyone else to be opened up while they protect themselves. So they want someone to do all the heavy lifting and do all and make all the efforts, and leave themselves open to all the hurt. But that doesn't work that way. Love is a two-way street, I think.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like that, like you're right when you say that people want others to be open while they
Yeah.
themselves tend to close themselves off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've
And they
never
want
really
to be
thought about that,
chased.
but you're
And
right.
people want to be
Yeah.
chased. And,
One interesting thing that I read relates to what you were just saying about becoming obsessed with somebody at the beginning.
mhm.
And that's like a documented scientific um like effect on the brain when you first like it's
Yeah.
obsession. And it's actually related to serotonin. So
Mm.
serotonin is not the love hormone. The love hormone is oxytocin, the one that creates those feelings of attachment. Um, Oxytocin, the attaching, the cuddle hormone that creates feelings of attachment. As a side note, that actually does rewire your brain. It
Wow.
creates oxytocin creates new pathways in your brain that include your new partner in your like daily activities. And and then that, like you're asking me like before about attachments growing stronger, it's more of the oxytocin. Like every time you feel that, your brain builds more pathways with the oxytocin,
Wow.
and then your that person is more and more incorporated into your into like your brain, like your brain chemistry, like
Right.
it's, as we say, into your heart, but it's really into your brain chemistry.
Right.
um, and the thing that can actually uh, undo those pathways or break down the pathways is cortisol, which is the stress hormone.
Wow.
So stress can actually deteriorate or break down those pathways. And so just like physical affection and uh yeah, just like physical affection and love can create the attachment, the pathways,
Mhm.
cortisol or stress will break them. So it's so stress is, stress also blocks the production of positive hormones. So
Mhm.
not only is it blocking the creation of new pathways, but it also breaks down the existing ones,
I've
to
had
make you feel farther away, like distanced from your partner.
maybe that makes sense because when it's unrequited and you're still on the hook, and they're long gone, a lot of people say you got to hate them. You got to make them
Oh
into the bad guy.
yeah.
Because if you do that, then I guess that cortisol is coming around. It stresses you out
Huh.
and it balances. And that
That's a
actually
really
works.
good thought. I never thought about that. That's a really perceptive,
Yeah. That's
like,
helped me. That's helped me.
yeah, that
It,
maybe it's The
When you
cortisol.
like someone and all these chemicals are working, moving you into that attraction and lust mode, it you also have this sense of admiration. Like I have this, you put them on a pedestal, you admire them, they can do no wrong. Um, you know, and when that happens, um, and someone's not taking care of your heart, not protecting you, you're still on the hook for that. You're still looking out for them. You're still connected. The live wire is going to happen if it's not reciprocated. You're going to get hurt. And the only way to do that is look at their negative. Everyone has a negative side. Everyone, they snore or they did this or they did that. You look at that, and it kind of helps you to rationalize why you shouldn't be with that person, and
Mhm.
that at least helps you with unrequited love. Now, um, this goes for both sides. If there's some kind of connection, the minute you see each other, all this goes out the window, I think, because when there's no contact and where you don't have that energy sharing, it's fine. Time does heal and you rationalize and all this jazz, but you see them again and it's like you're back to day one. you know you're back to day one. That connection, that chemical connection, is just so strong. So it's really good to not make an effort to see them if you know it's not going to go anywhere for whatever reason, because they're not giving you the love back as much as you want, or they're just not right for you, or they yeah
Mhm.
that's I think so.
Yeah. Um, so the last thing I thought was interesting that I read was about obsession, like what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. Like you can't get them out of your mind. You want to know what time, like you're thinking about them all day. Like this is the time that they would be coming home from the gym.
It can
All
interrupt your
those,
life.
yeah, yeah, and how we use reason to kind of overcome that obsession. But that obsession is driven by serotonin. So whereas
Mm,
oxytocin is like the cuddle attachment hormone, serotonin is like the stable unstable hormone. Like it creates stability or instability in our
right.
mood. And so it says that levels of serotonin can initially drop when you're first falling in love, making you more unstable,
Hmm,
and which can lead to obsession.
right.
However, like in the long run, once like then serotonin will return to its normal like high or even go higher. It will increase over the long run and eventually stabilize your feelings of calmness and contentment in that relationship. But for some reason, initially, it does drop when you are first meeting, when you're first attracted to somebody, it does drop. And
Hmm.
so it does create these feelings of instability in you. Like
Yeah,
that causes that obsession initially, which then over
because you don't
time,
know
as
where it's
serotonin
the doubt.
increases,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like that obsession and like, it's not you being crazy, it's literally your brain. You are responding to the decreased levels of serotonin in your brain.
Yeah. No, you can feel
It's
it, and
wild.
it's like it's almost like you're detoxing from a drug. You're not getting the uptake anymore, and you're kind of you're starting to wild. You're wild, and like um yeah. So I think, man, you know it. I don't want to say that it's easier for straight people now, because now straight people are gay people. We're all living in a very different world. But the dating pool is smaller in the gay world. And I feel
Yeah.
like there is a sense that love is either, well, I think it's Disneyfied and romanticized too much um, in the gay world, like the perfection. You know, everyone goes on these apps. The apps, I think, have ruined things. It's connected us, but at the same time has given us this morbid way of thinking about love and expecting perfection around the corner. And there's always someone better and someone new. And it's created this kind of throwaway society. You know, when our grandparents, they didn't have all these advances in technology. They literally if they were in a village, you had like 5 guys you could date, and you made the best out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it worked. It worked out, right? I mean, people get happy, and sometimes when I go to a restaurant and I see 500 pictures of possible things I could order, I get stressed out. When there's top 3, I prefer that. It's like this is their specialty. This is what they're good at. And I don't need to see a 15-page menu. I just want 2 pages. What's on here? So too many choices, I think, have driven us crazy, and it's driving everyone nuts, and it's making people say, "F this, I don't want to date anymore," because it's a hassle. Because it's like trying to get the perfect, meal off a 500-page menu. It's just crazy, and it's not
Yeah.
the best meal. It's just kind of mediocre because there's too many choices for the chef to make it amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think about this a lot because I'm off and on single.
Hmm.
Um, and the pool of people that I can date really is pretty small, because
Hmm.
I want someone who is younger than me, and I want someone who doesn't want to have children, and I want someone who, like, wants to live on like a tropical island with me, and like doesn't want to doesn't want to stay living in the United States. I mean, the pool of things I'm looking for is like
Right.
really small.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Um, so it's a little bit, it discourages me.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know what else to do other than to keep on looking.
Keep on
Like,
looking.
that's just where
Yeah.
I wind up. I get discouraged, and I think there's really not a good chance that I'm going to meet the perfect person. But what's my alternative? Like, to just stop trying? That
Right.
doesn't seem reasonable either.
Well, I
Uh,
did that. I did that for many years.
yeah. I mean,
I've
I can
gotten
understand it,
years.
but
Mhm.
in my mind, like, that also doesn't solve the problem. Like,
No, it postpones it.
um, it just kicks the can down the road, and you're just sort of, um, yeah. So I mean, I just sort of recognize that there may not be, I might not have a long-term partner. Like, I might just have a series of short-term partners who make my life fulfilling for the 6 months or the 1 year, or the 2 years that I date them. And then, when I'm single again, I also feel fulfilled, and then I'll go back into a relationship. So it's like I kind of have accepted the possibility, not the inevitability, but the possibility that
Mhm.
I might not ever have one person that I stay with forever. But
And that's okay.
that's okay. It wasn't what I initially wanted, but
Right.
I'm discovering that I can still lead a fulfilled and fulfilling life as long as the relationships that I'm in, even if they're not permanent, are good ones with good people who make me feel good and who I make feel good in return. And even if it doesn't last forever due to whatever reason, it was still a good and happy and meaningful relationship when it
Yeah.
did last. And so that's kind of how I console myself when I think about the fact that finding the perfect person who wants the exact same things I want at the same time in my life that I want them,
It's
when I
hard.
think of, yeah, how slim that is, I think to myself, well, maybe I don't need the perfect person. Maybe I just need
No.
like Mr. Right now.
Yeah, exactly. And Mr. Right now, even, nothing lasts forever. Relationships don't last forever. You don't know if it's going to be 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, 40 years. And um, it'll stress yourself out, and you'll actually self-sabotage if you put too much pressure on things.
Hmm.
So it's just you're going with the flow. You're living life, Kristen, Dr. Kristen. You just have to keep chugging away. But I think if I can give anyone any kind of advice on this from my past experiences, don't close yourself up. You know, um, don't make a fool of yourself either, but don't close yourself up. Meaning, don't let your ego get in the way, because sometimes the other person needs a little bit of help, and in the sense of they don't like to make the effort, they feel a little bit more timid. You know, extend a hand out and say, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And if they say no, then that's fine. But a lot of us, what we do is we let our egos get in the way, and we either say, "Oh, they're not perfect, so forget them. I'm not going to invest time. I'll keep looking," and then what happens is 15 years later, you look back and you say, hey, you know what? Those people were actually more of my type. I wish I would have given them. What happened? Why didn't I give them a chance? And it's because your pride got in the way, your ego got in the way. Why didn't they chase me more? Why did I have to do all the heavy lifting? You know, just go with the flow. And if you like someone, let them know. Maybe not all at once because that'll freak them out. But stay present, you know, stay present, I would
Yeah,
say.
I think that's great advice. Um, I think that's great advice.
Yeah,
And I think that I grow and expand as a person when I'm challenged by somebody else.
right. Exactly.
Um, like the relationship that I'm in now, I I love my partner. Um, but it has been like a true test of patience. I think on both of our sides to make this
Hmm.
relationship work. And I know for a fact that like 10 years ago, I could not have done this. I couldn't have
Right.
been in this relationship. Like I would have um, thrown my hands up and I would have given up. But every relationship that I've been in has made me has challenged me in like in a new way, has taught me to like become a better communicator, has taught me to have more patience, has taught me
Right.
to see the other person's side more. Um and so there is always good that comes even from short relationships. There's
Right.
always something that comes out
It's
of
always something you learn. Yeah.
there's always a lesson, there's always like um, some growth, some personal growth that you get out of it, even if it's just recovering from heartbreak and
Right.
becoming more resilient, becoming
Hmm.
like, there's always something. And you have fun. You have fun while it's good.
You have
You have
fun.
fun during that time.
You
So
learn and,
there's,
and you grow. Mhm.
yeah, there's lots of positive things that come out from even temporary relationships, even relationships that end poorly. Like obviously it didn't start poorly because you wouldn't have sustained it. You wouldn't have stayed in it.
No,
So
yeah,
it
I
was
think
fun for a certain while. So,
exactly. I think also people, listen, people get scared. They don't want to give up their freedom. They don't know if you're the right person they're investing, they should invest in. And I get that. Um, but if you don't invest some kind of time in that person, you'll never know. You
yeah,
you have to go down that road to know if it's a dead end or if it's the right road that'll get you to the love of your life, or one of
yeah,
the loves of your life that changed you. Um, it's the only thing we have. It's not work. It's literally family, sense of community with friends, and love, and that's it. And
mm,
love comes in many ways. It's love with your friends, love of a neighbor, and love with a partner, and those are they're all very beautiful things. In my 20s, I loved my friends more than my family. It was my new family. It was my chosen family. And
hmm
then as my friends started coupling up and having kids and relationships, marrying, it did hurt me a little bit because I had already put so much energy into those relationships and they were starting to dwindle.
yeah,
And then that's when you realize, okay, I too have to do the same thing. I have
yeah,
to also find a partner. And that happens with everyone. I think in the gay world, it happens a lot with women because we usually have one female friend that's just we're like soulmates with, And when that kind of putters away as it normally does, it does leave you hanging a little bit. And then, or vice versa. There's always maybe a girl that's in love with her best gay male friend until he gets married. So either way, it's all about growing and learning, and you've loved, whatever kind of wrapping paper you put on it, it's still love. So
Yeah.
it's better to love. What is it saying? It's better to
To,
love and
it's better
lost
to have
than
loved and lost than to never have
never
loved at
to
all.
love at all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, no,
that's
I think that's a really nice sentiment. I also balance that though with like wondering if I'm staying in a relationship that's mediocre. To throw water on the things that you just said. Like
yeah.
sometimes I wonder like am I sustaining a relationship that's just mediocre?
Well, and
I
that's
don't
why I
so sorry to like totally sidetrack the
untangle
sweet
everything.
sentiment that you were saying,
I
but I
mean,
go back and forth.
I think most people are in relationships that are mediocre because this stellar connection thing is so strong, and it happens very infrequently, that within those, 12 years has gone since I felt butterflies. Now I feel them. And have I had relationships in 12 years? Absolutely. One of them actually lasted 2 years. But that wasn't a relationship that I was very uh, connected with, because it was a situationship, what they would call nowadays.
Hmm.
So I think I think while you're waiting for this higher connection of a relationship, being in a relationship where you both respect each other, and you kind of, I'm sure he feels the same way about you, Kristen. Like maybe you guys are just good enough together. Um, you know, I also feel like there's always one person that loves more in a relationship than the other. There's always one that loves the other person more.
Hmm.
Uh, it's never going to
Yeah.
be 50-50. It's always 70-30, 60-40, something like that. Sometimes 90-10, Um,
I feel like
but
sometimes it also fluctuates.
it
Sometimes.
fluctuates. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you probably, loved harder, and now he's loving harder. It's just, time will tell if you're in the right relationship or not.
Hmm.
But what I'm more concerned about is it's finding that connection with people, and hopefully not losing it, because when it feels good to be attracted, to go through those stages. But yeah, if you get disconnected for some reason, it's an awful feeling. So that, yeah, could lead to
Well,
heartbreak, and we're old enough to realize that it's heartbreak. Well, there you go, it's heartbreak. What are you gonna do?
yeah. I mean, that person that gave me butterflies that I'm still friends with, I've been friends with them for 3 years now because we dated about 3 years ago. And
Right.
every time I see them, I still get a little bit of butterflies, like just as a
See,
friend. I
that's what I
suppress it, I
was
put it down,
that's what I
ignore it.
was mentioning. Like
Yeah.
once you see them, these feelings come up again. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't think those feelings will ever go away.
No,
Like
they don't.
the other two, I'm not friends with anymore because they've moved away. So
Right.
I don't see them ever. But I'm sure I am 100% sure that if I saw them again, I would feel the same butterflies from 10 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a rare, like for both of us, it sounds like that's a really rare and special thing that hardly happens, it sustains. I wish I could have had a relationship with one of those three that worked. Like that would have been so exciting. You
No,
know,
maybe
but
sometimes they say it's too intense to sustain. Um,
yeah. I mean,
I don't
maybe
know.
none of ours burned out. Like it
No.
wasn't like we had enough time for it to burn out, like it ended for different reasons.
No, it never
Um,
burns out. It usually, like the last two were just explosive endings in a sense.
mhm.
Um, because it's one of those things where it was like the ebb and flow wasn't there, and you feel disrespected, so you just cut
Mhm.
it off. You cut it
Yeah,
off,
that's exactly. Yeah.
and then you don't want to see them again. But the minute you see them again, yeah, all those feelings come back.
That's
Um,
exactly it. You feel disrespected. And it's
right.
not it's not totally disrespect. I think it's also you feel the inequality of how
Inequality,
much
yeah,
you like them versus
right,
how much they like you. And that inequality, like every text that they don't send you back right away,
right.
every time that you are more excited to see them than they are to see you, every time that you jump up to greet them at the door, but they sit
Yep.
staying on the couch when you come to their apartment, like that, it just feeds that feeling of inequality
You're
that like
literally counting the minutes from when you post something
exactly.
until they
Yep,
like it.
exactly. You
Or
are counting the minutes for work
yeah,
to end,
yeah.
and you run
It's
to their apartment and you can't wait to see them, and they don't get up from their couch to say hello to
yeah,
you.
it is.
And you're like, "Oh my
That's the
God." And
that's the
it like
disrespect. Yeah, no,
it eats away at you, and you have and like and so the practical side of your brain has to end it, like,
yeah.
you know.
No, I mean the first one I felt like this was a situation where um we basically stopped the whole progression of going into a relationship because he had just gotten out of a 5-year live-in one. But we were still kind of seeing each other, doing everything, preparing for a 5K, going to the gym, cooking dinners, going to the movie theaters, going to the swimming pool. It was just a lot of relationship stuff that we were doing, but we weren't in a relationship. And then
Mm,
the minute that he started talking about other guys is the minute I just freaked out and I said, no more. I don't want to see you again because it started to really hurt, you know? Because you
yeah.
do care about this person and you do want more, even if you say you don't, and even if you agree to just being a situationship or friends, someone that you really truly care about, you can't be friends with. You just can't. It hurts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it hurts. I mean,
um,
you can suppress the hurt because of the pleasure that you get from their company.
right.
And
Yeah.
I have friends who do that. Some of my like I have a guy friend who's in love with one of our girlfriends, and she
Right.
doesn't feel the same way back, but he would rather suppress his feelings, and they've talked about it, but he'd rather suppress his feelings of love for her just to hang out and play board games with her. So it's
Yeah, but the minute
possible.
they stop hanging out, he goes home and he literally is like feeling really
Right.
bad. That's the
Right.
problem.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's the trade-off, in those
Yeah.
situations. Like you can choose to stay in the person's life and feel that like ping of pain every time you see
Right.
them. Um, uh, for the happiness that their company gives you. But,
Yeah.
that's hard and it's really hard. Yeah.
You can only stick around as long as you can bear it, and it's
Right.
it's a matter of time. it's,
Right.
it's a matter of
Right.
time.
And it wears you down too.
It wears
Like,
you down. And then what happens is your next relationship is one where the guy is nice or the girl is nice or whoever, and they're giving you things without you having to wait for it. They come home at the right time. They text at the right time, and you say, "Man, I think we should give this person a chance." And then that's who you actually get into a relationship with that lasts 20 years. And then you look back and you say, it might be a mediocre one because there's no fireworks, but there's respect, right? There's respect, and you hopefully that love grows and you make it as exciting as possible. So some
mhm.
people, for years, I didn't want to do that. I thought it was settling. Now I'm getting older and I totally get why people get into mediocre relationships, because you need it to live, companionship, all this stuff. But, you know, I'm still holding out. I'm still holding out.
I know.
I'm still holding out to see if one of these butterflies turns into something real.
I hope so for both of us.
Right.
Um, but it was funny. My boyfriend and I were talking about one of our guy friends that we live, that live near us, and
Hmm.
he consistently enters into what can only be described as disastrous relationships,
Oh
like
man.
just like one. Huge mistake after another, after another, always ending um sadly, and so he's like a very sweet guy. He just he's just has he chooses like terribly.
Right.
And so my boyfriend and I were laughing about the fact that like the relationship that he would do the best in, like the relationship that he would truly excel in, would be
Hmm.
an arranged marriage. Where like someone else picks the woman
I'm
and
telling
they
you, I
just
think
show them to each other. And they're like, you are
this is
each
what
other's person
happened. This is
for
what
the rest of
happened.
your life. You are each other's person. Like, be good to each other, build a bond, find things, find what you have in common. Maybe it's only two things because we're choosing you for each other. Grow that. Like, I think he would excel. He's a kind man, you
I think a
know?
lot of people would excel because
Yeah,
that's the restaurant with three options on its menu.
right,
And a lot of cultures believe in falling in love. They don't believe in that love at first sight or the butterfly feeling. They think that that's just a sexual response, and they feel like something that's more sustainable is something that you can grow into, that grows, which would be stage three of attachment. They
right.
just really don't believe in stage one and
Stage
two,
one.
I guess.
They don't really believe in
But
stage one.
exactly. So, and some people, and I've been, party to this. You get stuck in stage one,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
or
like stage two, lust is it's really it's truly like separate from stage one. Like you can
right,
lust for somebody that you're like you can be horny and want to have sex with anything that
right.
moves that night. Like that's lust. But are you attracted to the person that you're having sex with? Maybe, but like a lot of times not really. It's like you
No,
call it
a
beer
lot of it is
goggles.
just yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
just
like or like you kick her out of bed in the morning and like you're and like you never intend to talk to her again because she's so not your type, right? But like you
right.
were just lustful. So
Yeah, but would you have invested, let's say, 10 hours of hanging out with that person the night before? Or it would have been a hookup app thing, It's
yeah.
when you invest so many hours, even if it's a first date or second date or a first meeting, there's something there. There's something that you know that you like about them. It could be anything: the smell, the way their hair is, the beard, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
But there's something that's keeping your interest, that's progressing you to the next stage. So, you know,
Did you and I talk about arranged marriages at one of our previous podcasts? Because I discussed
no,
arranged marriage with somebody. No? Oh,
I don't
okay.
think so. No.
Oh, because
Mhm.
I was talking to somebody about this, and so maybe it was my boyfriend, and so we were looking it up and reading about it, and like the whole concept of like a Western, like like how we are, is that you have
Yeah.
to fall in love first, right? So your
Right.
relationship starts out at the highest it's ever going to be, like new love, and it can literally only go down from there.
Yeah, it
And
sets you up for failure, man.
yeah, like over the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, like it will never be as fun or as exciting or as fulfilling as it was during the honeymoon phase, the
Right.
first year or two. And so that's why there's so much divorce, because we start out on such a high and then it's
Mhm.
impossible to keep that high, and so we become disenchanted with it, and we want the high, we
Maybe
seek the
that's
high.
what happens with the
The high is a
butterflies.
rush, and so we get divorced and we look again for the high with somebody else. However, the arranged marriage is the complete opposite. It starts out at the lowest it's ever going to be because you don't even know the person. You have literally no connection with them.
Hmm.
So it starts out at the lowest it will ever be, and it can only grow from there. Like whether you develop, you're going to develop some rapport with that person, whether it just be a friendship,
Well,
whether
you
it be a
hope.
friendship and a physical attraction, like whether it be just the bond that is having children and raising co-parenting together, like whatever your connection with that person is, it will be more than the nothing that you start at. And so those marriages often tend to leave people feeling fulfilled because number one, it's the only relationship they've ever had, so they have nothing else to really compare it to. But also, it is a lot stronger than it was at the beginning. So like it's
Right.
growing up in strength, whereas Western marriages only ever go really down for the most part in strength.
Right.
So it's really interesting, like, when I think, and like when you're told that this is your person, like sometimes like it takes that, like you were saying, when there's so many choices, like you don't really invest any too much in any one person. You're kind of jumping from person to person, kind of like not giving anybody your full self, your full attention. But when you are told that this is your person, you put your whole
Yeah, there's three dishes. Make
everything
them amazing. Right.
into the other person, into wooing
Right.
that person, into like creating a life with that person, like into making that person feel special. And you only have one person to devote all of your efforts and energy into. And so I really do understand how arranged marriages are so successful. Like
I mean, I think
when
we
I was
need gay
younger,
arranged
I was like,
marriage.
that's crazy. Like that's so stupid. It's so unfair. I
I'll do
can't
it.
believe that.
Yeah,
Now I get it. I
I get it.
understand why they
I
work.
know. It's because when you're young, you're altruistic, and that's what I think happens. Is when you're too young, you throw people away for little reasons or silly reasons or mistakes, and it's you throw them away because you feel like, why am I going to invest in someone that's not perfect? They're not for me. They wouldn't have done that or worn that or said that if they were for me. I value myself too much. It's not about valuing yourself too much. It's about giving people a chance and knowing that there's something there and being a little bit more intuitive about your feelings and not letting your pride and ego in the way. These arranged marriages, what you say, make a little bit of sense unless they're super forced. But like, you know, I like the whole idea of matchmakers. I've matched a bunch of people. I've gotten a marriage under my belt. Um, but I really think it's probably the best place. Well, the best place to meet someone nowadays is in person. The apps, I'm not convinced of at all. And if it's through a friend or if you're with friends and they approve them, that's even better because you got perspective, and you have someone that's kind of matching you because they know both of you. So maybe we should go back to the matchmaker instead of match something else.
Well, speaking of matchmaker, there's a bunch of online matchmaking services that are
Hmm.
very, very expensive in the
Personalized.
United
Yeah.
States. I have a friend who lives in San Francisco. He's a guy, and I don't remember all the details, but there's a matchmaking service in the I'm in San it's San Francisco. It's San Francisco, so like it's like a lot of rich people, a lot of like powerful people, and so this service it's a niche service for those people, so it's very expensive to participate. So let's say that like if you're looking, let's say that you're the one who hires the service. I think it's like $100,000,
Oh
like,
my.
and you're guaranteed three matches. I think it's something like that. Like that's all. Like it's very expensive,
Yeah, but
and so
it's yeah. It's
if you're the person, so it was a woman who
hmm.
had, and my friend is a guy. My friend is in the database as a possible
Uh-huh.
choice. Like he doesn't have to pay to be in the database, but he has to be vetted. So like
Right.
he had to be vetted to be put in the database as a possible match for those who are
Hmm.
paying. And so every so often, like maybe like he says like twice a year, the matching service will reach out to him and like give him a bunch of questions that he has to answer.
You're still
And
making
because they have a
500
woman
grand.
basically
Right.
who is paying for their service, and he came up as one of the initial, like, let's say 30 possible matches that the computer finds, and then the people
Right.
who work there create like interview questions basically for each of those, like, let's say 30 computer matches, and they interview these people, my friend included, like, over the phone, and saying like, such and this woman, let's call her, Melissa, whatever.
Hmm.
Melissa likes, her dream is to live in a farmhouse in the middle of the woods. Like, how would you feel about that? Like, she has two dogs. How do you feel about that? Like, so they kind of they see who is suited to her, and then who just in terms of like general personality, general interests, like it's that like that just kind of impression that the matchmaker gets. And then so then the matchmaker whittles it down from the 30 computer matches to like 10 matches, like after the interviews. And then like the person, the client, the woman who's hired the service, like she'll look at all 10 and she'll choose her top three, and
Wow.
like so my friend has been reached out to, like he's been in those like initial 30 matches, let's say, like twice a year, and
Wow.
then he's never made it to the final round.
Man.
Where
Man,
he's
even
like,
with a matchmaker, it's tough.
well, yeah, so he's never made it. Like maybe he's made it to the top 10 after the interview process, but he's never made it to the top 3 where the client chooses their
Right.
top 3, except one time. One time he
Mm.
made it to the top 3. And when you make it to the top 3, you are required to email the person, because you have to do it over email. Email the person within 24 hours to ask them out. You
Wow.
can't you can't wait longer than 24 hours or you're kicked out of the service.
Oh,
And you
wow.
also can't chit chat with them. Like the purpose is not to text them, like email back and forth to get to know them. That's not the purpose. Like that's not
Wow.
allowed. Like you must set up a meeting with them. That's what, because these people use this service because they're tired of
Right.
like texting, endlessly with people over
And that's
apps.
another thing, is it's exhausting, and the opportunity cost, I'm sure these people, they make a lot of money, and they want to spend their time doing that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
they're outsourcing the matchmaking, but it is exhausting for the layman person who doesn't have a matchmaker, because
right.
those 3 hours you're scrolling and hitting, swiping right or whatever, that's a waste of freaking time. You're gonna have conversations like, "Hey, what's up? What's up? Hey," and then that's it. 90% of them, that's all you get. Like, it just, people have the attention span of an ant.
And
Um,
I think like also, what you say is correct. Like when there's so many people and you kind of
it's
meet up with so
fickle.
many people, like you kind of freely move in and out of so many different first dates, like no
Yeah,
one ever really stands out because you're just always kind of moving on to the next, and no one's ever super special. Like everyone's kind of equally
right.
muddied in the huge mix of just so many faces and names.
Mhm.
But when you have this matchmaking service, you already start out feeling special
That's
because
great.
you have been culled from a database of thousands of names down to 30, down to 10, down to 3. So you show up feeling really special. And
That's
like
great.
that mindset, like I am already very special to this person. I already stand out to this person, makes you so much more invested right at the very beginning.
Yeah,
And so the date that you plan is going to be so much more elaborate, extravagant, thoughtful, right? Like how you dress, like the fact, like, you getting there on time, like you being all the things, maybe even bringing flowers. Like you're already so much more
yeah,
invested in this first date than you would be in a regular one when you're going out on 30, on 30 every few weeks. And then the woman is also invested because she's paying $100,000 for this. So she's already more invested in the date. Um, and so you both parties go in, I think, like just yeah, like so much more like I don't know, so much more invested, I guess is the best word. And so
well
it's
cared
easier
for.
for things, yeah, it's easier for
Yeah,
things I think to grow when you have already like a strong foundation, like or at
right.
least a stronger foundation. And so now the end of the story is that they are dating. They are dating,
That's
and they've
awesome.
been together for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And yeah, so it worked
That's
out. Like, and
phenomenal.
he had been single for a long time before that. Like a long time. Just finding like Matt, not ever trying and failing. Or I shouldn't say failing, but pursuing relationships that
Just
just never
not
worked
feeling
out.
satisfied. Yeah, or they're it they go nowhere, or
Yeah,
you're
relationships
dating
that
for
just went
2
nowhere.
weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, 3 weeks, 2 dates, 3 dates. I mean, that's a story of a lot of people's
a lot
lives.
of us. Yeah, a lot of our lives.
So, yeah. So, well, I thought we had a very lovely conversation. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
joining me, Dr. Kristen. And I love hearing the whole, kind of like chemistry behind the chemistry. And we added our own little opinions. So if anyone else wants to share any future stories, please reach out to us at theagingqueen@gmail.com. That's theagingqueen@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And, we're opening our hearts here because we think, and I especially think, that it'll help someone. So please send us feedback, join us. Let's all be vulnerable together so we can learn, live, and grow. Well, thank you, Dr. Kristen. We'll see you on another one.
It was my pleasure. Always so nice to talk.
Likewise. Bye. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, at the end of the day, we're all just aging queens.